here I will demonstrate how to make the rice that you will use for the drink, horchata. Here I have 2.5 cups of white rice that I have used a strainer and I rinsed it out. So I use this strainer and I rinsed it out. And this is the brand of the rice, Canilla. This is an extra long grain rice. I'm not particularly familiar with making it with a different brand of rice, but I'm sure you can. I rinsed out the rice in this strainer. Make sure you wash it very well. And then you put it into the blender after you have washed the rice. And you will add about 40 ounces of water. That's about 3 bottles of water. Okay, so it's actually 48 ounces of water. I'm adding 3 of these. I don't have a filter, so I'll have to use bottled water. So I'm going to be adding these to the blender. Okay, so that's what the blender looks like. There's rice and water only. And I am going to be adding canela. This is cinnamon. This is a little too much for me, so let me break it down and show you how much I'm gonna add. So I broke that piece down to a piece that's probably like 4 inches big. It really depends on how pungent you want your horchata to be cinnamony. I really feel like this piece is very, very good enough size. Usually the pieces are this big. As you can see, this is like a whole piece. And I'm only gonna add this one. So let me put the big piece back. Adding this piece to the blender. Closing the blender, and I'm going to blend it. So here I have put the blender on my base, and I will be blending. Again, all we have in here is about 2.5 to 3 cups of rice, depending on how much of this you will make. You get about a whole gallon for this recipe. So you have 2.5 cups of rice, rinsed thoroughly, and then you have added 3 bottles of water, about 48 ounces of water, and a piece of cinnamon stick, and that's it. 3 ingredients, and then you will blend. So you want to let it blend for at least 2 minutes. This is a very important step, as it will help break all of that rice down with that water and that cinnamon. A lot of people do let and call for the recipe to let the rice sit overnight. I don't find that to be necessarily true. You can make this recipe. I do have a Vitamix, so it tends to blend everything extremely, extremely, extremely well. But I do recommend that you also check how much your blender holds. I was seeing as I blended that it does reach the top, but again, my blender holds everything in pretty well. The seam is super waterproof, so nothing leaks. So check what the capacity of your blender is. This is a pretty big blender, so you can tweak the recipe and do less. So you can do 1 cup of rice and 1.5 bottles of water, which is about that's about 25-ish ounces of water. You could tweak your recipe. It does require you to add less cinnamon, of course, but this is a great way to make horchata water. You want to sieve this very, very, very well, and you do let the water sit, if you're not in a rush, in the fridge for a couple hours. If you're going to be getting ready for a party, you can actually make the whole thing and let that sit in the fridge, and it'll get nice and cold. Serve with ice. Let me show you what this looks once I sieve it. So here I'm going to be pouring. I have a funnel and I have that strainer that I used earlier. The strainer does have bigger holes, so it will let some of that horchata rice water go through. So some of it will be thicker, but that's perfectly fine because I want that little bit of texture in my horchata after I add all of my ingredients. You could watch the second part of my video on YouTube. Like I said, you can let this sit. You can put this into a different type of jug. You can pour this into a bowl. You can make this for parties. In my second video, it does show that I did add cannabis sugar to this. You could add regular sugar. You do not need to add cannabis. or maybe a different type of sweetener. But this is the actual base. This is what you're left with. And as you can see, it's milky. If you don't like the thick consistency, I do recommend using a cheesecloth or a funnel and a strainer that has smaller holes in it. And there are other types of sieves that you can use. So it all depends on your preference. We don't mind it to be a little thicker. Hope you watch the second video. Take care. Peace.